I'm currently on a cruise with the most traditional cruise line there is. They're known for their strict dress codes, formal nights, ballroom dancing, and afternoon tea. On paper, this really isn't a cruise that suits me, but when Cunard announced that they were launching a brand new cruise ship, the first in over a decade, I wondered if that might change things. Cunard promised that their new ship Queen Anne would be a game changer and that it would blend traditional heritage with innovation. Many of the reviews from past Cunard cruises said that the ship was disappointing or a letdown. There were so many reviews saying that it really wasn't like a Cunard cruise at all. I wondered if I would be disappointed too, or if it was just a case of Cunard modernising and the existing audience not liking it. I wanted a way to try the ship as cheaply as possible, so when I saw a little 4-night cruise pop up, I decided this would be my chance. The cruise went to Bruges and Cherbourg, and I booked the cheapest cabin on the entire ship just as a way to get on board. We embarked the ship in Southampton, and embarkation itself was very easy. Our suitcases were taken from us, and we'd see them again on the ship after having checked in. As soon as I stepped on board this ship, I could already tell that she was so different from the other Cunard ships. The colours, the carpets, the stairways, everything felt so modern, and it's a design that I personally really like. I was getting very excited at this point. The ship certainly looked like a ship that I would enjoy, but I did hope that it wouldn't be style over substance. This ship took 7 years to design and build, so there was a lot riding on her launch. Cunard have organised their ship around staircases A, B and C, and they all have different colours. The carpet colours match where you are, and the arrows always point towards the closest staircase. I thought that that was a nice feature. Anything that can help me find my way around is appreciated, as I do get lost on ships. There's also quite a few extra staircases around the ship too, which reduces how busy the main stairs are. I love spiral staircases, and there was no shortage of those. Heading away from the stairs and along deck 1, I found my cabin. It was here that we found our cruise cards. These are what you use on a cruise to charge everything to, and it's what you use to get on and off the ship, so they are very important. I've stayed in inside cabins plenty of times before, but there was something about this one that I really liked. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but it just felt luxurious. As luxurious as a box without any windows can be anyway. I love the blue and the gold and the detail around this mirror. We didn't stay in our cabin for very long at this point because we knew that we had the whole ship to explore. There was so much that I wanted to see and do on this cruise. I'd heard about the shows on board, I wanted to visit every single venue, and I wanted to do those classic Cunard things like afternoon tea. I knew that it would be a stretch to do everything that I wanted to do in just 4 days, so I started exploring as soon as I could. There was no time to waste. We pretty much ran up the stairs, we were so excited, and we went out to the top deck. Cunard have the most iconic red funnels, and Queen Anne's didn't disappoint. The sky was even blue, which was a real treat. I was not expecting that. In the golden age of ocean liners, the number of funnels a ship had was meant to show how fast and powerful it was. Some Cunard ships, like the Queen Mary, even had fake funnels to make her look faster. Queen Anne doesn't have any fake funnels, and it's funny to see how funnel fashions change. That's a hard one to say. There are a lot of plants and sun lounges around the top decks, all in keeping with the design. Heading inside, we found a really impressive inside pool area with a massive retractable roof. Sadly, the pool was closed during our cruise for repairs, and they did let us know about that ahead of time, but we still use this space quite a bit. This isn't the only pool area on the ship. There's another one at the back with these lovely yellow menus and these plants. It is so cute. I did see a couple of people out here braving the pool who I thought were very brave. Don't mistake the brightness for warmth, it is definitely not the same thing. We decided to stay by the inside pool for a drink, and because I had bought a soda package pre-cruise, that was very easy. All I had to do was to show my cruise card to the waiter. The soda package cost £12 a day, and that meant that I could have unlimited soda anytime. Cunard even have Pepsi on the menu, which is amazing. I love these glasses. I know that that is a small touch, but it's these small things that do make a ship feel more luxurious. Another touch like that was how the Cunard towels are already on the sun loungers. I used mine more as a blanket than anything, but still, I appreciated it. It was here that I found the first of what I'm calling doorways that it doesn't feel as though I should go through, even though I have to. Maybe if you haven't been on a cruise before, this won't make much sense, but a doorway like this really doesn't look like a passenger doorway. I clearly wasn't the only person who thought that, because they have added signs everywhere. This was my first little quirk that I found, but it wouldn't be the last. There are a couple of things that I never really understood on board. Next on the schedule, we had something that I haven't had to do for a very long time, a traditional safety drill. My location for this was room 1840 next to the casino. I should just say that room 1840 is a bar, it's not somebody's cabin who we had to meet at. That would be very weird. On most cruises now, you'll watch a safety video on the cabin TV or on your phone, but we had to do the old style where everybody on the ship goes to the muster station at the same time. In total, the drill took just over half an hour and they had to bring extra seats so that everyone could fit into the room. We were just unlucky because this is something that has to be done every 6 months or so. If we were on the cruise before ours or the cruise after ours, we wouldn't have done it like this, and it reminded me why I like that new style so much. Queen Anne is a traditional cruise ship, unlike her sister Queen Mary II, who is an ocean liner. There are lots of differences, but to summarise, the biggest difference is that ocean liners are designed for crossing big open oceans, possibly in bad weather, and cruise ships are pretty much designed to go round and round in little circles. On cruise ships, the buffet is usually up high, and that's where we found it on our tour of the top decks. We didn't really mean to stop here to eat, but when faced with all of this food, we decided we might as well have our dinner here. Cunard are a formal cruise line, so I knew that we would be dressing up for formal night and going to the main dining room later in the cruise. The buffet on Queen Anne is food court style. I love the idea, but in reality I don't think that it really works yet. All of the food that we had in here was great, but it was a bit of a kerfuffle with people standing around waiting for the crew to serve them. No one really knew where they should be waiting or what they should be doing. With a few signs and a bit more organisation, I think that this could be great, but it's just not quite there yet. We had some pizza, which was really nice, and I found a map on the wall which showed what was at each section. I'm not sure what meat theatre means, but maybe it just means cutting up meat in front of you. I think the word theatre is quite a strong word for that. The buffet itself was big, I loved the design, and it felt very modern. Cunard cruise ships have always been classical in design, and this really is a big change. When most people think of Cunard, they think of an Art Deco style. Even when that style was first introduced on ships though, the existing cruise passengers said that it was too bold and too different, so you can't ever really please everybody with any style. While we ate, we went on the Cunard app, and it was here that we saw a show called Noir. My brother suggested that we should book that. I saw the word interactive on the description, and that did make me a bit nervous, but it was free, so we decided to go. The show was in a venue called the Bright Light Society. It was kind of like a murder mystery where people from the audience would get involved with the show. I was very happy to see that pre-show they were asking people if they would like to be involved, and they were handing them out some props. That made me feel more at ease. I did find it a bit weird how the actors stayed in character the whole time, but that's definitely a me thing. I always find it a bit odd when someone is pretending to be a person or to have a certain accent when I know for a fact that they don't. I kind of feel like I know, and you know, we're both adults, so it's not pretend. But pretending, of course, was the whole point. There were lots of groups in the audience who found it absolutely hilarious. They were having the best time. I enjoyed it, but it's not really the type of entertainment that I would choose. This is pretty much a theme of my experiences cruising with Cunard in the past. I can tell that a thing is good, but it's not necessarily to my taste. I was hoping that this ship would change that. After the show, we headed to the pub for karaoke. This is much more my thing, and the people who took part were really good. It reminded me of when I took cruises just after the COVID shutdown, and one of the rules back then was that you had to wear a mask while singing karaoke. That was a really weird time. The pub on Queen Anne is a really good size. Even at this size, it was busy sometimes, but we were never unable to get a seat. The service was good, and it really felt like a proper British pub. I love this flooring by the entrance too, it's a great colour. That lovely bed was calling me, so we decided to call it a night. We did something I don't usually do when I cruise, and that was ordering room service breakfast for the next day. On most cruise lines that is chargeable, but it's included on Cunard cruises, so that was a nice treat. Our first day was the day at sea, and we actually sailed in the complete opposite direction of where you would expect us to go, just because we were killing time, as seen here on my cruise globe. The cruise globe is available to use for free now, so just head to the website and add your cruises. Maybe you'll find out a quirk like my one here. Luckily for us, the sunshine was over west, so we were able to enjoy a drink at one of the outside bars. The bar was decorated beautifully and there was plenty of space. face. I felt as though I was trying to soak up the sun like a little lizard. And speaking of animals, I did see one bird on board who was hitching a ride. I was really impressed with the outside space, but there was one area that I was prepared to be disappointed by, and that was the promenade deck. On most Cunard ships, there's a big promenade deck with views of the ocean. They wrap right the way around the ship. On Queen Anne though, the promenade deck looks like this. I definitely see why traditional Cunard passengers are disappointed with it, but you can still get in your steps. There are still some open parts, and when the sky was blue, the views were amazing. I did find this piece of art on board that doesn't look very impressed, and maybe she was thinking about the promenade deck, I don't know. The daily schedule on a Cunard cruise is full of things like trivia, dancing, and lectures. We went to the pub a couple of times for trivia, and we also went back there again for lunch. Cunard are owned by the American Carnival Corporation, but it still is a very British experience on board. They have kettles in all the cabins and biscuits in the buffet. We made good use of the kettle, and I'd usually get my favourite peppermint tea bags from the buffet to use in my room. The lunch in the pub is included, but there are a few things now that have prices on that menu too. I went for the included options, of course, one day a pie and another fish and chips, with lots of salt and vinegar on the chips, as it should be, of course. My brother had this funny looking sausage roll at one point, and yes, spotted dick is a real dessert. That has got to be your Britishism of the week. A spotted dick is a steamed pudding made with dried fruit, and in 2020 they changed the name of it in Parliament to a spotted Richard. By that I mean that they changed the name of the dessert that they serve in Parliament, as in on the menu. They didn't make a law that said that everybody had to call it that. It is still called a spotted dick. I wasn't planning on spending a lot on this cruise, and I wanted to cut my costs wherever I could. It wasn't a cheap trip, but more about that later. One way I did reduce the cost was by buying the cheaper version of the Wi-Fi package. It actually worked pretty well for me, and it just meant that I couldn't watch videos or stream. The only problem I had was that YouTube was blocked entirely, so I couldn't upload a photo there, even though I could upload that same photo to Facebook or Instagram. I definitely wouldn't have paid the extra just to be able to do that though. I was only away for a few days, so this worked fine, and it allowed me to keep in touch with the world and keep up with my work. There are a lot of specialty restaurants on board Queen Anne that do cost extra, but I didn't do any of those on this trip. Another place where the food is included though is the Pool Grill. We went here for a burger and onion rings. We were given a little buzzer while we waited for the food to be cooked, but it didn't really take very long. There were also some food options on the deck above at the Wellness Cafe, but I didn't have time to try those. I knew that tonight was formal night, so I made a plan to go to the main dining room and to see the musical theatre show. I'm a big fan of musicals, but I have to say this one I did not like, which is really unlike me. When we were wandering around in the afternoon, we heard some classical music and decided to follow it. It led us to the bottom level of the Atrium, which was very grand. I loved the design here, and I think it's a great mix of classical design with more modern touches. Hopefully this sort of style will be timeless and Cunard will be able to keep this ship for a long time. I might look back at this video in 20 years though and disagree, given how weird the sort of 90s cruise patterns look to us now. On the top level here is the Corinthia Lounge, and all of the spaces flowed together really nicely. It didn't really feel like separate rooms so much as just separate areas. There's also a chart room and other little lounges. In the middle of the atrium, there was a string quartet playing, and we would find music all over the ship. There was never any shortage of musicians. They'd be in the pub, the Commodore Club, and even the inside pool. One of the main venues for music in the evenings was the Ballroom. This is called the Queen's Room. It's a very different venue on the other Cunard ships, where it's more of an enclosed space. This one did feel like a place that you could just walk through. It isn't as grand as the Ballroom on Queen Mary 2, but I do prefer the actual design. I imagine that if you're somebody who really likes dancing, maybe it's a little bit weird to have people looking down at you and sort of wandering by while you're dancing, but that didn't seem to bother anybody. The dance floor was always full, and they would play a good mix of modern and more classical music. The band that played in here was so much fun, and we made sure that we came back here a couple of times during the cruise. I knew that they held afternoon tea in here, so I was looking forward to that. I was very ready to make my scone sandwich, and yes, you heard me right. On the top level there are shops and some seats, including these big ones which remind me of of bird cages. On the lower level of the atrium, I found our cruise maps and this amazing model of the ship. There were plenty of puzzles that were partway through, and I love how people trust other people not to mess up their puzzle. I would be so annoyed if I spent ages putting this together and someone ruined it. It is a team effort though to get these kind of things done. There's also a nautical chessboard, which is so cool. This ship is so cute. Formal night is a big deal on Cunard cruises, and the theme of ours was black and white night. I didn't get the memo about that, so I hadn't bought a black or a white dress, but I thought that dark purple would do the job. The themes are always just suggestions and no one ever has to take part. The dress codes do apply pretty much all over the ship after 6 p.m, and even on the non-formal nights there are more dress codes than you would find on most cruise lines' formal nights. I usually wear what I would wear on a cruise line's formal night on the non-formal nights, and something longer on the formal nights. I do prefer cruise lines without dress codes really, but for 4 nights it certainly wasn't a problem to dress up every day. We had an assigned table in the main dining room, and it is the most impressive space. It can hold around 600 guests at a time, and it has windows around the edges. You might expect a room with so many people in it to be noisy or overwhelming, but it really wasn't. It's a calm space and we enjoyed coming. We were cruising on this cruise with my Captain Hudson's Adventures co-author Jerome, so we decided to have dinner together. We were brainstorming for our next book, which is about Captain Hudson going back in time to save the animals of the Titanic, inspired of course by the traditional ocean liners and my transatlantic Cunard trip. Generally, our dinner was good. The food portions I would say were smaller than I'm used to, but there is no shortage of food on a cruise ship. The great thing is, if you're hungry after a meal, you can just go to the buffet, you can order room service, you can pick up a burger by the pool. There is no limit and no rules. The meal took around an hour and a half, which is pretty good, but I did hear some other guests who were waiting much longer, so I guess that we got lucky. I'm glad our dinner didn't take too long because we were going to the theatre to see a show called Brief Encounters. It was bizarre, but a lot of people loved it. I'm not the target market of a Cunard cruise, and that suits me fine. I like to try all kinds of things. The average age of a person on a cruise across all the mainstream cruise lines is 47. On Cunard, that's 61. The majority of people on our cruise were British, which makes sense as it was only a short cruise. I did meet some Americans though who had flown all the way to the UK just for this 4-day trip. The theatre itself is the longest theatre I've ever seen. During one show they had a video showing on the back screen which had a person playing piano on it, and I thought that it was a real person for a very long time. I have pretty good eyesight too, so I'm sure that that tricked a few people. The seats were very comfortable and there wasn't a pillar or a post in sight anywhere, which was great. I loved the design and all of these shapes on the sides. Our cruise visited Bruges and Cherbourg, and in Cherbourg we went to a museum that is right next door. It has an aquarium, a part about the Titanic, and a submarine that you can go in. I've been to the museum twice now and I would happily go again. It couldn't be easier to get to, and it's a nice way to spend a few hours. I wasn't really on this cruise for the submarines though, I was there for the afternoon tea. This is such a Cunard tradition. They serve you sandwiches, cakes and scones, all with white gloves on. They play classical music in the background, and it's definitely a kind of treat you would do on a cruise, but probably not at home. We arrived almost 20 minutes early, and if we were any later, I don't think that we would have got a seat. That might have been because we were on such a short cruise, so everyone wanted to try afternoon tea, or it could be because of the size of the venue. I'm not too sure. It did feel a little bit like being in a corridor because we were over to one side and people were always walking by and peering at what we were eating. I don't blame them, of course. I would do exactly the same thing, but it just didn't feel the same as the afternoon tea on the other ships in the grand ballrooms. I think this is a great example though of how Cunard have modernised the ship, bringing Cunard a little bit more mainstream. I did miss the promenade deck and the big ballroom, but overall Queen Anne is much more me. One review even said that it might as well be P&O, which they are saying as a massive insult, but I do understand in some ways what they mean, and I like P&O. Queen Anne is targeted to a younger, more modern audience than the Cunard ships have been traditionally, but I think that that's good. Like anything, cruise lines have to adapt and change. I'm sure a new audience will be attracted to Cunard through this ship, people just like me. There are of course many spaces on board that still seem very traditionally Cunard. The Commodore Club, for example, at the top of the ship is the most amazing grand lounge. We spent a lot of time here sitting and just looking out at the views. They'd have music in here in the evenings, and often we'd meet our friends here. It was a great place to catch up, to compare what we'd been up to in the day. It always amazes me how you can be on the same cruise as somebody, but have a totally different experience. Cunard do have a luxury area on board called the Queen's Grill. I met a couple of lovely friends who were staying on board in the most amazing suite, and they very kindly let me have a look around. It would be totally possible to go on this cruise though, and for me not to know that this existed at all. The same goes the other way. Someone staying in Queen's Grill might not realise that I'm down on deck 1 in my inside cabin, going to the pub and eating in the buffet. In total, I paid £589 for this cruise, which is around $730. That is my cruise fare, and based on 2 people sharing an inside cabin. The daily tips and gratuities that Cunard add on added an extra $64, and then I paid $80 for the Wi-Fi. I also bought a soda package for $54 and spent a whopping $10 in the casino. That brings my total for the 4-night trip to $938, which is around 750 Great British pounds. It certainly isn't the cheapest short cruise I've ever taken, but I don't think that's too bad a price for a brand new cruise ship. The newest ships are always more expensive. To find out what it was like cruising on Cunard's oldest ship, check out this video. We crossed the Atlantic on her, and it is the first cruise I've ever taken where I wouldn't want to do it again. To find out why, watch this video next.